Good evening. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum for the Nassau County Legislative District number 11. My name is Nancy Rosenthal, and I will be your moderator tonight. As called for by the League of Women Voters rules of this forum that both candidates have agreed to and which were read earlier tonight at the first forum, the candidates will speak in alphabetical order for opening and closing statements. I plan to rotate the order of who answers each question first and second as stated in the rules. I do not vote in this district, and I want to emphasize that the League does not support or oppose any parties or candidates. Our timer tonight will be Judy Jacobson, Chair of our Voter Services for the Port Washington-Manhasset League. Would you please turn on your camera, Judy? Our candidates for the Nassau County Legislative District 11 are Delia, DeRiggi-Whitton, and Meagan McCarty. Candidates, please turn on your cameras. We will begin with opening statements from Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton. Please unmute yourself and begin.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to partake in this endeavor. My name is Delia DeRiggi-Whitton. I'm currently the Nassau County Legislator for the 11th District, which encompasses Glen Cove, Seacliff, Glenwood Landing, Roslyn, the village of Roslyn, Port Washington, and Sands Point. Prior to being the county legislator, I graduated from Hofstra University, where I majored in psychology, and I then worked for State Farm Insurance for 5 years, and I was a senior claim representative there. I then worked for a private financial advisor when my children were young, and at that point, I ran for city council in Glen Cove, where I was elected for 2 terms. After that, I did run for county legislature, and I'm currently ranking with public safety, the committee. I am also ranking with the health committee. I am also on the rules committee, which involves the county contracts. And I was lucky enough to be appointed to the American CARES Act Economic Advisory Committee by the County Executive, Laura Curran, where we have been charged with the task of distributing the funding that the county received from the federal government for COVID recovery. And I was just thinking about the last time I was here 2 years ago, there's no way any of us could have anticipated what the past 2 years dealt us. And during COVID, I worked very closely with the county executive. We did many of the press conferences together. I went 2 or 3 times a week. We met with Dr. Eisenstein in charge of the Board of Health, and I stood there while we heard about the capacity of the hospitals. We were worried about ventilators. We were trying to get, it was just surreal. We were worried about the deaths. It went from there to testing. I was dealing with people at 1 o'clock in the morning from Port Washington, getting them tested on the phone with the Board of Health. Went from there to food insecurities. We were out pretty much every day delivering food. We went all through the low-income housing. Did a lot of work with the senior low-income housing. We did a do good to feel good effort, we called it, where we collected so much food and everything else, and we brought it to everyone. We then went to the vaccination portion, where my assistant and I would try to schedule vaccines all over, the area, especially for seniors. We ended up being able to get a vaccine pod in Port Washington and Glen Cove. And it's really been an incredible 2 years or 18 months, and one I will never forget, and one that was very challenging. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty? No, you're on mute. You're on mute.
So I'm a first-time candidate. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I appreciate everything that you do. I am a wife of a police sergeant in Port Washington. I'm a mom of a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'm very involved with their schools as a class parent, and I'm also a den mother for my son in Cub Scouts, a cookie mom for my daughter in Girl Scouts. I love volunteering, and I tried to help out with whatever I could. I was also involved with getting people food during the pandemic, very important task. And it really hit me hard, knocking on doors and hearing kids crying because they're starving. One bag of food I delivered to a cab driver that had hot dogs in it, and he was so excited. So something simple like that brought so much joy. It was very moving to me. So I believe it's time for a change, and I can't wait to get to work and help out the community in whatever way I can. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton, you will be the first. What will be your priorities if elected?
Okay. If I'm reelected, I have a number of projects that are just about to get started, including one of my favorites, which is Manor Haven Boulevard. We're going to be breaking ground within the next couple of weeks. We just met with the Department of Public Works, and turned out to be a close to $6 million project that I was able to get the funding for. And it's going to involve a whole streetscape. We're going to try to bring the nautical theme to Manor Haven. I love Manor Haven. I think it has such a potential. I would love to help, I'm hoping that by giving it this facelift and improving traffic and the walkability, we're going to be getting everything to be handicap accessible, including, the sidewalks. Obviously, we're saving the trees, which was a big endeavor. We had to redo the whole project to save the trees, which we absolutely had to do. So I'm really looking forward to that. And again, that's going to be starting any day. I also have 2 other major streetscapes, one in Glen Cove on Shore Road, and one in Seacliff on Prospect Avenue. My district surrounds Hempstead Harbor, and all of these streetscapes are going to be, surrounding Hempstead Harbor as well. So I think it's going to really be a big improvement. I have many other projects, including different septic programs that I've been working hard on that are finally coming to fruition. We've just done the sewer in Seacliff, which is really important for our environment. So, and many more. But thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCarty.
Hi, yes, I have 3 priorities. Number 1 being the reassessment, really straightening that out and working with the presiding officer to really trust the constituents and hopefully getting an elected assessor and having them pick that so we can have more accountability. I also want to improve the quality of life, and will propose a quality of life task force that will go out and try to make, be the eyes and be more proactive so that we could save taxpayers money in the long run. And small businesses. I want to make sure that the funds that we get from the federal and state levels are dispersed appropriately and in the most transparent way possible, and in the best way communicated what we have, how it will be dispersed. Thank you.
Ms. McCarty, this question's for you. What is the most important piece of your prior experiences that makes you the best candidate for this position?
So I did work as a legislative aide, both in the town of North Hempstead and the state Senate. I really love doing research, thorough research, and it's been a passion of mine. And I believe that I'm the best candidate because I take it to a whole nother level. I try to look at every possible scenario, every angle. I try to figure in cost, and there's a lot of work that legislative aides do. And I can't wait to be the person in front doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton, please.
Well, I have to say, being involved in government, it takes a while to really understand the nuances. And I think my experience, I know I'm a better legislator now than I was when I first started, because there are so many levels that you need to learn. The assessment is one. Personally, I don't believe in an elected assessor, because when you're an elected official, people want you to do favors and help them. And if you're the assessor and you're an elected official, people are going to ask you to, help them with their assessment of their homes and things like that. I think it mixes two worlds. I've also expressed my concern with the assessment. I actually have been in Newsday about it, but I don't think it should matter who the assessor is. I think it really should be, once the role is set, it doesn't matter who's the assessor. The role should be fair. The role should be accurate. And slowly but surely, we're getting there. It's frozen right now, as everyone knows. But in the interim, we've really hired more people in the assessment department. And I think that it is going to show. It's being a legislator involves a lot of real understanding of what you don't know sometimes, and you can think you can come in and do everything, but you really need, the education and the background. I mean, to start on this level is, I would have found it challenging. It's good to start on if you can, on a smaller level and work your way up. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Ridge-Whitton, as our county representative, if elected, what are your thoughts on the development of the county by developers using IDA funding that saddles taxpayers with huge infrastructure needs and costs?
Well, if you ever Google my name, you probably come up with the RXR development. And I was vehemently opposed to a pilot that was given in the RXR development. I voted against it. Scott Reckler and I have had an interesting relationship since that time. I believe that pilots are there for a certain reason. And, but like you mentioned, once a pilot or any other IDA funding interferes with the school districts or the taxes, like for instance, some developments are really, the best part of the development is the fact that they're going to be a reliable taxable institute for our budgets. We can't, and having the school district picked up the difference, and having, the county pick up the difference and the villages pick up the difference, it's really arduous for our taxpayers. My record has been, I voted against pretty much, I think, every single one that came before me. I remember the Green Acres Mall was a big one that we were very much opposed to. So again, using the money to help in some ways to stimulate growth, I do agree with, but we have to be so careful with these pilots, especially when they're asking for pilots that are like 40 years old, 40-year pilots. So whenever I hear the word pilot or a situation with IDA funding, I am always cautious entering into it, and I talk about trying to be a watchdog. That would probably be one of my number one concerns.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty?
So anything where the burden is on the taxpayer and there doesn't seem to be much benefit for the constituents, I can't imagine that I'd be voting for. I believe that I'd be against that.
Thank you. We know that there will not be sufficient taxes paid by Southern Land as they are applying to the IDA for a 20-year tax abatement. So what will the tax increase be to residents in Port Washington, as the water district is already issuing a big increase for each homeowner due to the water bond issue?
There we go. So again, we were hit so hard during the pandemic to bring more tax increases to the constituents at this point. I can't imagine that they would be for this. There has to be a better way to do it. I would look forward to looking into that, doing more research into it. And I can't imagine that the constituents would be for it. Again, I would try to do more town halls, maybe some round tables, get their thoughts and feedback, because it just doesn't sound like anyone's really benefiting from it except for Southern Land at this point.
Thank you. Mr. DeRiggi-Whitton, please.
I've been on many of those meetings, and as a homeowner, you know, I am leery about that project on a number of different levels, including their zoning with some of the land being underwater, which that was a new one for me. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but you're right as far as the water district with the PFAS and the 1.4 dioxin being cost to the water district, as well as other infrastructure. One thing that the American CARES Act has allowed for is funding that went into infrastructure for water. So I've met with Mindy Germain, I've spoken with her, and we're meeting with Brian Schneider, who is actually an engineer that is a deputy county executive, and we're trying to supplement some of the expenses that Port Washington Water District has incurred in this past several years. So let's hope that those numbers look better than they do today after the American CARES Act funding is dispensed.
Thank you. And this next question is also for you. For Nassau County Legislative District 11, what, if anything, would you do to address segregated housing in public schools in our district? Would they have any rules for the New York State Legislature play in mitigating segregation?
Well, I'm from Glen Cove. I went through the Glen Cove schools, and we really had a very good mix in Glen Cove. The schools were represented all areas of the city. I am very much in favor of next generation housing, and as you know, we do hold developers to a 10% quota, and that is not an easy task. They seem to really try to do everything they can to avoid that by trying to find other solutions or other ideas. But as a mom of three, that, you know, I would love to see be able to buy their own homes on Long Island. You know, I hear about this need all the time, and we really try to hold everyone to that. I think, and this might be a little off, but any time that you get the opportunity to learn about other cultures by having friends from those cultures and religions or anything is such an important part of your education. So I totally support integrating, you know, our children, and again, I also really believe in holding these developers once again to being responsible for doing what they legally have to do, and that is to provide for these homes.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty?
Yes, I think that, you know, the Port Washington School District is also extremely diverse, just like Glen Cove. I've seen that too. However, I do think that there's room for improvement. I always do. And perhaps there are positions within the county and leadership positions where we'll be able to work with groups, minority organizations, in order to have them be leaders and, you know, really influence what's going on within the school districts, within the housing. So I'd be open to that.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty, what Nassau County needs do you see as the most urgent right now?
Urgent. I just driving around, I see a lot of for rent signs on main streets. I've been consulting with other town leaders that they have thriving downtowns to try and figure out what is it about our area that is lacking. And you know, I will continue to do that. So I would have to say all the for rent signs on Main Street is a big concern, especially within our community.
Thank you. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton, please.
There are a number of concerns. One that I'm concerned about is the fact that we live on an island and we live on top of our water, our drinking water. And I wrote legislation which was passed unanimously, which banned fracking waste from being used, believe it or not, to melt snow, because that used to actually go into our soils and contaminate the aquifer. You know, if it was used, it's radioactive. So, but and that piece of legislation was taken and used in Manhattan, or actually all 5 boroughs of New York City verbatim. So I worry very much about our saltwater infusion, and that's why I've spent, 90% of Long Island, of Nassau County is sewered. And out of the 10% that's not sewered, 90% of that 10% is in my district. So whenever I've had an opportunity to spend capital money, many times it's been going to sewers and different types of projects like that, including the septic project that we have going on now. And that also helps our downtowns, because now, like in Seacliff, which is not sewered, they've been able to open more restaurants and things like that and not have to worry about the capacity of their septic systems. So they all kind of go hand in hand, these problems and solutions.
Well, thank you. You have the next question. What is the biggest threat to the health and safety of the citizens in Nassau County?
Well, again, the first thing I think of as a mom is all the opioid abuse that we've been dealing with, and I can tell you firsthand that the pandemic has made it worse. I've done numerous Narcan trainings. I think we've trained over 1,000 people. Something I've actually brought my own kids to these forums from the time they were very young, just to be aware of it. Unfortunately, the pandemic has made many of these mental illnesses more severe. There's been a record of people reporting anxiety and depression. There's been isolation, which also, increases any type of, mental instability. There's also been a cut down with the amount of therapy that people get. We were even doing it virtually is just not the same. Our training for Narcan has been postponed because we really like to do it in person. We tried doing it virtually, it just didn't have the same impact. You sit there and you listen to those moms talk about their kids, and you have to be in person to really get the full effect. So I definitely think, I worry. I was able to be part of legislation which banned use of marijuana on county parks and property. I'm very concerned about the prescription drugs too. I see what that's doing to a number of people I know, and it's a scary thing to watch. It has to be monitored, especially if people are if you're responsible for people.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty?
I have to agree with the mental health component, and how that all boils down to almost every kind of problem that we've had during the pandemic, with the uptick in drug overdoses and opioids, suicides. It's been very ugly, and I would love to try to figure out a way to help everyone, and work with groups like Project Help, which really does bring the whole mental health component into the drug abuse education. So I would look to do that, and I do think that is really the biggest problem.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty, please tell us one difference in priorities between you and your opponent.
I think the biggest difference is our view on how to treat the reassessment problems. That would, I'm pro-elected assessor. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Thank you. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton?
I don't really know too many of her agendas. So I can't really comment on that. I haven't seen her at any meetings. I think one for about 10 minutes, but so I don't really know where she stands on a number of things, but I can say, that I have been at all these forums for assessment, and it was interesting. You probably could learn a lot by going to them. And I've been very outspoken. I've probably been the most outspoken person on definitely in my party, but even leaning towards the other, we've worked bipartisan in a lot of ways because our concerns were so great. So I'm not exactly sure, where she stands on any of that, but thank you.
The next question is for you. What more can the Nassau County do to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, I work closely with the Office of Minority Affairs, and I think that we have really become aware in the last year and a half, especially of many hurtful feelings that many people have, not only minorities, but if it's women. I've been to so many hearings and so many different outreach programs in the last year and a half, and I think that Nassau County, we're lucky because we really all agree on the fact that we want to be inclusive. We just voted last week to have even a handicap or special needs commission to really help people with accessibility. And, that is something that I really feel very strongly about. Again, with the diversity, we have, I feel like we represent so many different cultures, especially in my caucus, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. Again, I believe that one good thing that came out of the past year and a half is that we're all a little bit more sensitive to each other's needs, and I hope that that continues to grow.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty?
I think that there's always room for improvement in that department. And again, going back to meeting with different groups and organizations and appointing really diverse groups that will help with that. And within the whole Office of Minority Affairs, draw from different groups and really have these town halls and roundtables within the communities so that we get the feedback and then we can bring it to the legislature. So I would look forward to doing that.
Thank you. What if anything, if elected, would your office do to help the citizens of Nassau County with COVID-related issues?
So that's for me, right? So,
correct.
Okay. We have to make sure that the funding gets dispersed appropriately to the small businesses. With the COVID relief, I think a huge component, going back again to the mental health component, we need to focus on that. There are a lot of people that are suffering still so greatly from that. We need to support our healthcare heroes, our hospitals, our first responders with whatever they need, and really reach out and do whatever it takes to make sure that things don't become the emergency that it was a year ago. I think we've learned a lot in the past year, and we can apply that to how we handle, hopefully it never happens again like this, but in the future, how we handle things, we'll do a better job.
Thank you. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton, please.
Thank you. Well, we just got our first bulk of $200 million through the American CARES Act. And out of that, $65 million was voted upon by the county legislature, which goes to small businesses. Like, for instance, we did a lot with the restaurant rescue plan. I went door to door to pretty much I would say most businesses in my district, and gave them the application for Boost Nassau, where most restaurants were able to get $5,000 or $10,000 depending on how many employees they had during COVID. There's also money now, and again, I'm plugging Boost Nassau because it's been a major part of my life the last couple months. But if you go on that website, almost any business can qualify for a grant, a $10,000 grant, which is not a loan. It's given to you. So we really have been pushing that for the businesses. There's also 501c3 grants available. We have money for the veterans. We also have $100 million that we just voted on that we are going to be giving to households that are in, well, let's say we assume they're in need. All those that apply that are eligible for STAR are going to be receiving a check automatically. We also have options, if you go to the same county website, where people that don't qualify automatically can sign on and show that they've lost funds and can pre-qualify.
Thank you.
Qualify.
We will now move to closing statements. Ms. DeRiggi-Whitton, you are first up for the closing.
Okay, well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters again. I've been coming here for a number of years. I've been going to many of your events, and I always leave feeling better after I've been to an event, because I feel very. I'm glad that you're so encompassing of all different issues and have such a knowledge. And as a mom again of 3 daughters, I really respect the image you portray for women, which is to be educated and to know of all issues. And I have to say, I really truly love my job. I feel like I've been doing well in my prior elections, and I feel that I have earned the trust of many of my constituents, and I will absolutely pledge to continue to work hard. We have a record of always, doing everything we can to get, if not, if someone's not happy with the answer sometimes, but at least we get back to everyone. I have also really enjoyed other aspects that this job has brought to me, other opportunities, including running the largest Toys for Tots collection in the nation. I've raised over $1 million to diabetes research. And this whole
You're kind of, I think we lost connection.
Scarcity is still going on, and that's why we're still in. They lost connection. Can you hear me?
You're good now.
Okay, so I don't know I just said the food insecurities are still a real reality of our world, and we're continuing with those efforts as well, collecting and distributing food. So again, I appreciate you having us tonight.
Now you're muted. I think we'll just go on.
I just said, I appreciate you having me.
I think.
Yeah, it's breaking up.
I think your internet's kind of getting a little shaky there. Ms. McCarty, let's check your internet for your closing statement.
Okay, I hope it's working. Is everything good?
Looks good. Okay.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. It is important that we are represented as women, and you do such a wonderful job of dispersing information, and I greatly appreciate that. I also want to thank my opponent. This was a really good, engaging forum that we had, and so thank you for that. And I just can't wait to go to work, and this has been such a great experience, campaigning, meeting everyone, meeting the people, knocking on doors, talking to businesses. I'm just having so much fun and learning so much about the whole process and about the issues. I love working hard, and I'm just having a ball. So thank you so much to everybody who's watching, and I hope everyone has just an amazing night.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. The public and the League appreciates your willingness to answer questions from voters thoughtfully and candidly and in civil discourse with your challenger. This is democracy at its best. The candidates are now muted. If you would like candidates to wave goodbye to potential constituents before your cameras are turned off. Thank you, viewers, taking your time to learn about the candidates who seek to represent you in what democracy is all about. A recording of this forum and the other forums tonight will be available on the LWV of PWM YouTube channel within 24 hours. The next forum tonight will start at 9:15 p.m. and will focus on the town of North Hempstead supervisor. To view it, you will need to exit this event on YouTube and return to the LWV of PWM YouTube channel, where the next forum will begin live streaming as a new event in a few minutes. Please join us for the last forum of the evening on this channel. This forum is now ended.